Aside from hearing all the birds beginning to sing, one of my first telltale signs of spring are tulips. I live out in the country, and there's this property on the main road leading up to the house where they've got literally thousands of tulips that come up every year. And of course, this project that you can see here in front of me be great as a little Mother's Day gift, and we've made it specifically for Mother's Day, but if you use your imagination just a little bit, it definitely can suit many, many different occasions. So let's take a look at what we have here. Now, this project is actually pretty straightforward. I already kind of pre-laid some of the stuff out just to make sure that I've got everything cut out properly, but in doing so, you can sort of see how everything is going to go together. And what we're going to do, this is the little planter piece. I'm going to move this out of the way for a second. What we're going to do is begin, this is two sections here. What we're going to do is we're going to begin by gluing these pieces here flat onto the little silhouettes of the tulips here. And you'll notice that these are two different pieces. You can see that better there. You've got this section here that looks like that on top, and then the one section that looks like this. These are going to get glued flat onto these flat layers. Okay, so we can begin by doing that. And then we're going to be, for those of you that are familiar with our paper sculptures, typically we try to give them as much dimension as possible, and in doing so, we rely on foam squares to do so. So just beginning by putting these in place. I'm going to scoot this down a little bit here just to make sure that I'm getting everything lined up properly. Now, I've taken all of the, in my case, white tulip pieces, and I've run them through a Doris Tiny Hearts embossing folder just to kind of jazz them up a little bit. And we're just going to go around and line these up with the corresponding parts on these two flat pieces. Okay, so let's do that. And this is going to be a pretty quick project. Actually, it should be very quick. So if you want to make something handmade for Mom this Mother's Day, actually this may be a good time to begin kind of getting things in place. Let's just do that. So for this project, since I'm doing it in a 12 by 12 shadow box, here's my full sheet of 12 by 12 paper. You don't actually need to cut that. Nothing needs to be cut. And we've included this little piece here. Okay, this is kind of a guide. Okay, so here's what we do. We're going to take and measure 6 inches so that we can find the center point on this thing. Let me move this over just a tad so you can see this. Okay, so I'm going to take this and just put it on my little cutting mat here and get that nice and centered. There's my 6-inch mark. Okay, so I'm actually not going to use a pen. What I'm going to do is just use my X-Acto knife and just cut a little notch in there just so that I can see it. Okay, I don't want to use a pen because then it'll be a little too visible, and I don't want anyone to see that. So you may not be able to see it, but just pretend that there's a mark right there at the 6. Okay, then what we're going to do is we're going to take this and align that mark with the center of the little triangle there. Okay. All right, so you can see what's happening here. Now, we're not actually gluing this down, we're just using it as a guide. If you want to, you could maybe just temporarily tape it down so it doesn't move. And I may actually do that just to kind of keep it in place. Just a very light amount of tape. And I'm just going to put it on one side just so it doesn't move around. And just press ever so slightly so that you don't risk tearing the paper. Okay, and the idea is, and we're going to glue this down flat, is to use this little area here to help center your entire project. Okay, so that's where it needs to go. That's how you know that it's on center. Okay, so let me flip this over and let's get our glue on this piece, and we're gonna get this glued down. Now I'm gonna need to work pretty quick here. Don't overdo it on the glue on this. We just need it to stick. We don't want to warp it. And also don't put glue all the way at the tips of the little leaves, because we're gonna end up training those and kind of flaring them out a little bit. Okay, but get your glue on here. If you want to use spray glue, you can. I'm just going with regular glue. It seems to work fine for me. Okay, get your glue on there. Okay, so this first layer again is going down flat. Let's pick this up and there we go. So I just realized that I'm going to make an edit to this video, and I'm going to recommend that you glue this down without these pieces on there, because it gets really heavy and it may not want to sit very nicely. Maybe make it difficult to actually put this in place accurately. I got lucky. Okay, so right now you're seeing this with these on here. I'm going to recommend that we do these pieces here after this piece is on your 12 by 12 sheet, just to make it easier, because that was actually not the easiest. So, all right, so now, and again, in the video, when you do this, you are going to assemble these tulips after we get this on. So you're ready to do that now, okay? So again, ignore the fact that these are here. Our first step is to put this piece onto our backing, okay? This would probably be a pretty quick project, as there's not a whole lot to it, but the end result is unique and beautiful and dimensional. And we've also included a vinyl caption element that is optional. I won't be putting it on during this video. I'm probably going to do a separate vinyl video, and if not, if I happen to run out of time, there's hundreds of vinyl videos out there, and some of you may decide that you want to put the vinyl inside of the glass, and you'd have to reverse it then, or for those of you that just want to do it on the outside of the glass, let's say if you're using like a glitter paper, or not paper, but glitter vinyl, you'll want to put that on the outside of the glass. Either way, I personally like it on the outside. It stands out a lot more. So whichever way you do it's fine, but in the meantime, you want to just get all of these main tulip pieces in place. Do your best to get them nice and aligned. Even if they're just a tiny bit off, it's okay. I think that the little, and I'm using a Photoshop term here, but a little drop shadow, or I guess you can call it an offset, is not that bad of a look. Okay, so get that in place. And then what we want to do, because we're going to eventually take this layer and pop dot it onto this layer. But before we do that, I want to assemble the tulips here. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to take these now, and we're going to use some foam squares to apply them to these 4 tulips on this large piece. Okay, so all we're going to do is simply take some of our foam squares and apply them to the back of these. I'm probably doing more than I need. I think 4 is probably plenty. Now these are the foam squares that come off nicely. I've gotten different brands over the years and these come off really nice for us. Okay, so we're just going to line this up so that it's right on top, kind of using the bottom as a guide. Okay, and just pop that on there. Okay, so you can see that there's a little bit of dimension there on that tulip, and then we're going to take this piece here. So for each tulip, you've got the flat piece that gets glued down like that. Then you've got this piece that looks a little bit different up at the top, and that goes on top of that. And then you've got this thinner piece that's going to go on top of that. I think with this one, we could probably just get away with using 2 foam squares. I think that should do the trick. Okay. And just get that nice and centered, nice and aligned with the other one. And there you go. Okay. So that is what our first little tulip's going to look like. It's nice and dimensional, simple, elegant. So go ahead and continue doing that with the rest of these, and then we'll kind of pick up at the next step. So I'm just going to repeat the same process here. And as I mentioned in my intro, I'm going to have to take a picture for you guys. If you guys are in the official Dreaming Tree group on Facebook, that's where I'm going to post it. It seems that Facebook isn't really being very business friendly lately, and it's a little bit harder to reach you guys, but it seems like in the group, there's a lot more, well, it's a lot easier for us to get in touch with you guys and actually engage with you guys. Okay, so again, I'm just putting 2 foam squares on this piece here. But anyway, if I do happen to grab a picture of that house with all the tulips, I will post it. Because literally, it's just, they must have planted some and then they've just spread like wildfire over the years. And I think the people that owned it moved, and whoever bought the property was probably pleasantly surprised. I mean, it's literally a sight to see, and it actually attracts a lot of people and photographers. I'm lucky enough to have it just down the street. Okay, so let's get this in place. I'm sorry if my head gets in the way here. I just want to make sure that I'm lining it up nicely. There we go. All right, and then we'll grab one of these skinny pieces and just continue the same process. As you can see, there's very minimal gluing on this project. You're just, well, I don't know, 3 or 4 things maybe. And the rest is foam squares. You can use pop dots if that's all you have. And actually, you know what? I put that in the wrong place. Bad, Leo. Yeah, just make sure that each tulip is 3 layers. And you don't mess that up like I just did. All right, we'll grab another one of these. And spring has finally sprung here in Chicago. And lucky me, I caught some kind of bug that turned into a bronchitis. So if you notice that my voice sounds a little different or a little nasally, that is why. And I don't quite understand what happened, because the night that my fever hit, the day before, I should say, I was just out in the garden working on the beds around my trees, and I wasn't doing anything malicious or anything that would hinder my immune system, so who knows. Anyway, I'm on the mend. Thank you for all the love in the group. Okay, so that's that. Okay, so now that we've got our tulip pieces on this piece, One thing we can do, and again, I mentioned that we didn't want to put glue on these leaves here. We can go ahead and take a dowel and just train these petals, or not petals, the leaves, back ever so slightly to kind of give this a little bit more dimension, like that. We've got one here that we can curl back a little bit. This one here, it's kind of behind, well, that one we can't actually. We're gonna leave that one alone. And in doing that, I kind of lifted it up a little bit, so I'm gonna fix that up. And I really don't mind showing you guys my mistakes so that you can see that you don't need to worry about making mistakes, because you can always go back and fix things. And I fix things quite often, and it's okay. It's just the nature of what we do. Okay, so I'm going to peel that back a little bit. There we go. So now you can see we've got some additional dimension there starting. Okay, and next what we can do is we can get this pop dotted onto this layer here. Yeah, let's go ahead and get this pop dotted and put in place. Okay, so it's going to go right over that part there. We're going to flip this over and grab our dots, or in this case foam squares, and I'm going to begin by working the perimeters. Okay, let's get some there. And then let's get a few on our tulip here and here. Now remember, these leaves, I'm not going to put pop dots or foam squares up here. I'll do one here because I want to curl this as well to give that some additional dimension. This you can't really curl because it's part of that flower. So we're going to add one there. Let's add some there and there. Kind of looks like Bart Simpson a little bit. Okay, let's throw one here. And we're going to leave that one up here. We're not going to put one there. We'll put one down here because we're going to curl that. And then work our way down. And throw some all throughout this main section here. I'm going to need to get my other foam squares out, I think. Okay. Oop, that one's already removed. And get that there. And get that there. I'm going to flip this over and get a feel for how nice it sits. Just kind of pushing down. I think that's pretty darn good. Okay, so let's remove the backings and we'll get this thing in place. And then we can assemble the remaining top parts of our tulips for these guys here. And then I've got a little bow to put together and some pieces for the planter. And then that's pretty much it. So this, again, this one's going to go pretty quick. Let's get these off. Okay. I think I got them all. All right, so do your best. I would start at the bottom. Use the bottom as a guide. Make sure that you have it nice and level, nice and centered, and then go ahead and place it down. That's good. And straighten out the tulip here. Okay, this one's going to be on top of this other one, so that's fine. And actually, what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a little foam square right underneath this piece right here. I want that to be a little more elevated. Now let's get these curled, like so. Get this one curled. And we've got these two little petals here, or leaves I should say, like so. Okay, and let's get the rest of these assembled. So just like we did before, grab your little foam squares, and start building the next set of tulips here. Just place that right there. Okay, now one other thing too with these tulips is you can go ahead and curl these out too. Okay, I'm gonna do that. Just kind of curl them out. Now if you have, if you've embossed these with a certain type of embossing folder that maybe makes your paper a little more vulnerable to cracking, you know, you may want to skip training these. I know that there's some patterns that just kind of make the papers very, what's the word I'm looking for? Temperamental, I guess. Okay. So let's grab the rest of these. There should be 3 left for this and then 2 of those. Let's get this last one, or this top piece here, assembled. Okay. And just pop that right in place. There we go. You know what? I'm gonna throw one more little pop dot on the right at the base of this one too. I kind of didn't like how it was drooping right there. There we go. Okay, so that was fine. No harm done. That looks good. All right, so let's move on to our center tulip here. Just repeating the same process. Just get our foam squares on here and put it in place. Come on. There we go. There we go. Okay, on to, I hope I still have some of these good ones here. I don't think I do. I think these are the different brand. Yeah, they seem a little stickier. I don't know if the tops are going to come off as well. Nope. That is where my, if you have some tweezers, those might help, but I've found that even tweezers don't really work very well for this. So I just kind of stab it and peel it back with my X-Acto. All right, so let's pop that right in the center, which leaves one more flower. You can see how that's starting to turn out. I love it. Looks great. Okay, and while we have that, we can kind of pull these petals back a little bit and make them stand out. Okay, let's grab our last piece here and get our foam squares on here. If you have a more efficient layout for your foam squares, feel free to use that. I'm just trying to spread out the load, I guess you can call it, while trying to also make sure that I don't have them out too far out to where they'll be visible if you look from the side, but I don't think that's going to be a problem. Okay, so get that one in place, and that just leaves one more guy here. Okay, and let's peel that off. And then we just have to throw the planter on there with our cute little bow, and done before you know it. Okay, get that right in there. That looks good. Okay, so there are our beautiful tulips. That's actually really cool. All right, so now what we're gonna do is we're gonna grab our little planter here. Okay, so the next thing we're gonna work on is our little planter here. And the planter is made up of these pieces here. Now you'll notice that in my video here, I'm using these two pieces here. Now the reason that this is two pieces is because, well, typically, most standard size embossing folders wouldn't fit one piece. And I wanted to put hearts on here, and my hearts only went horizontally. So I couldn't put the strip in this way because then the hearts wouldn't be going in the same direction. So we split this in half. If for some reason you're not embossing this and you don't want to emboss it, you're using a solid color, we've also included one that is a full size. Okay, so that one that is not split in the center. And the fact that it's split in the center is okay because our bow is going to be covering up most of this anyway. So it's not going to take away from the overall aesthetic, and that's the reason for that. So let's get this glued into place. Okay, make sure you get that glue out to the edge there, and just get that nice and lined up with our planter here. I'm gonna do this like this so that I can kind of use my fingers to help guide this piece into place more precisely. There we go. Okay, and we'll do the same with the other side. Now you'll notice that these little ruffles here, I've taken and kind of peeled them back, and maybe even used a dowel to do that. I can't really remember. My brain's been a little foggy the last couple days, fighting this cold turned bronchitis. Okay, so let's get that in place. There we go. And again, this center part's gonna be covered up, so don't worry too much about that. And then we're gonna finish this off with this piece here, and that's gonna get glued on like so. Okay, so you wanna go ahead and ruffle these out. You can ruffle them out as much or as little as you'd like. Let's get that glued down. And then we're gonna throw our bow on there, and we're gonna pop dot this thing into place. Just follow the edge of the other piece there. Make sure you get it nice and centered. I need one of those glue erasers, I think. Okay, so that's in place, and we can go ahead and get this thing in place and then just throw our bow on last. So yeah, I did take a little dowel and I just kind of hugged the dowel with each of these little ruffly pieces just to kind of pull them out a little bit. You don't want to overdo it because you don't want to crease it. Okay, just nice and subtle, nice and gentle, like that. All right, let's flip this guy over and let's add our foam squares. Get one in the center, and then probably throw one there, throw one there, and there's a good spot right there. I don't think we need to go all the way to the bottom. I think there's fine. And then throw a couple in the center just to evenly distribute the weight here. And you know what, let's throw one down here, and then maybe one more about here. That should do it. All right, let's peel these off. And then we just got a little bow to put together, and then pop this thing in our shadow box, and we're pretty much done. Again, we are including a little caption that you can do in vinyl. Take a look at the photo of the final project to see where we place it. And I'm going to try to do a video on cutting out and applying the vinyl, I should say. But if I don't happen to get to it, just get on YouTube and I'm sure you'll find one. Okay, so again, I'm using the bottom as a guide here just to make sure that I've got it nice and centered, and just going to place that right in place. There we go. And if you have a few of these little ruffles that you want to pull back out, since we just had them upside down, you can do that. There we go. Okay, which leaves our little bow here. All right, so as far as the bow goes, what you want to do is you want to take a dowel and just kind of begin training these larger sections here. Because if we try to bend it too quickly, it may just crease and not look as round and beautiful. So let's start by doing that. And there you go. You can see how nice and round that looks. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to put just a little drop of glue here in the center. You can see there's little score marks there, and then there's also a little score mark there. You just want to align that in the center there. Okay, and just press and hold that until it sets. I'm going to apply a little extra pressure there. There we go. Okay, and then add another drop of glue right there. Nice and thin. You don't need to overdo it. And actually, let's throw the glue on this piece too and get it out to the edge, all the way out to the edge, so that that sits for us nicely. And just line that up with a little score mark there. Get it nice and centered and press. And just hold that in place for a second. Okay. There we go. Okay. Now we've got this piece here that what we're going to do is we're just going to kind of wrap this around. Okay. Like so. And I kind of want to, I don't want it too flat. Okay. So let's throw this on here. I'm not going to put glue on the front. I'm just going to put glue on the back. So let's throw a little bit of glue on here. And let's get the first half of this in place. And then we'll get this piece in place. Let's take a look at the front. I'm kind of pinching it on the top and bottom just to kind of create a little bit of separation on either side, because I want there to be a little bit of a shadow there. Okay, and we can actually probably, no, that's good. Okay, so let's throw another piece of glue here, or another little bit of glue there, and close that up. Okay, that looks nice. Give it a squeeze. Beautiful. All right, and all that's left then is to glue our little tail. You want this little part here to be just about there. Okay, and actually this part here should just be flush with the top there like that. So let's just throw some glue on the back of this like so. And I'm going to spread that out a little bit so it dries faster for us. Okay, and I did ink this with a nice purple, dark purple ink. Okay, give that a squeeze. Make sure you got it centered. I kind of don't actually. Let me peel that off and make sure I've got it nice and centered. There we go. That looks a lot better. And then we can take a little dowel and just kind of flare this out a little bit so it's not sitting flat. Okay, and I'm gonna curl one of these in a little bit like that. There we go. Okay, so all that's left to do now is to glue our bow right in the center there. So I'm just going to use this center cut here as my guide for my glue. And let me stand up to make sure that I get this nice and centered, because this is what you're going to see on the website and I want it to be perfect. Okay, so I'm also using the stem of that tulip as a guide to make sure that I've got it centered. Okay, and I'm just going to give that a push. I'm just going to hold that for a few seconds while it sets. And got to be patient with this one, I think, because the bow kind of wants to push away from the project. So just be patient while that sets. And then if you need to, you can always kind of push the bow out a little bit. Okay, so that's pretty much it for this project. And again, if you want to go in and add a little bit more oomph to your project by kind of curling these little sections that we didn't completely glue down, you're welcome to do that. That's only going to add to the dimensionality of the project, and whoever receives this is going to love it, I'm sure. And if you are giving it to your mom for Mother's Day, I'm sure she'll love it as well. Okay, so all that's really left to do is get this thing placed into your little shadow box, and as you can see, once we get this thing framed up, look how beautiful that looks. Very elegant, very clean. Would look wonderful in any setting in someone's home, someone's craft room, office, bathroom, bedroom, you name it, it'll look great. So I do hope that you enjoyed this tutorial. If you did, please take a moment to visit our YouTube channel and hit that subscribe button. If you do make this project, I'd love to see it, and you want to find us on Facebook by doing a search for Dreaming Tree Group. That's where all of our amazing crafters, we call them dreamers, hang out and post their work. So I look forward to seeing your work, and as always, I look forward to crafting with you again.
Stay on top of all things Dreaming Tree and engage with us today. Get the latest news and enter in our giveaways on Facebook. Get inspired by following us on Pinterest. Be the first to see our new product launches on Instagram. Do you prefer Twitter? Yep, we're there too. Watch our beautiful product trailers and assembly tutorials on YouTube. For more information, visit www.3dsvg.com. Live, craft, love, and dream.